Hello, good morning on this beautiful morning here, at least in Brussels. I hope it's good where you live, Lina. You live in Plovdiv?
I live in Sofia,
I'm
and
Sofia.
today is kind of rainy, but otherwise it's 15 degrees, so I'm not it's great.
Lucky. Yeah, we have finally the sun here in the northwestern hemisphere. I'm very happy to introduce to you our guest for today, who is Lina Krivoshieva. Uh, I met Lina during an event last year that was about inclusion, let's say broadly diversity and inclusion, very interesting event. And then we started talking, and I think Lina is such an interesting person connected to a wider societal shift. That's how I imagine a bit your work. She's a photographer and videographer, and she specializes specifically in documentalistic videos. That's also how I met you through your work for these documentaries that you've created. And also, she has this online media that in Bulgarian is called Toest. I don't know how to translate this in English, maybe something the closest to be meaning.
In
uh,
other words, I think
in
is
other
how,
words, I like it, yeah.
yes.
So voila, this is Lina, and I'm really happy to have you here and have this conversation.
Thank
Would
you.
you like
Thank
to
you for
add
the
something?
invitation.
If there's something that you would like to add that I missed, or how is it?
I feel sometimes like I have a split personality because I'm split between these two main things that occupy my day, which is the media, as you said. It's a co-founded project with another few enthusiasts. At this point, 8 years old, grew quite a lot. And I'm very happy that I'm a part of such a big, very dedicated and quite capable team. I am not the main force behind it, but lately I've been very, very intensely working with my colleague on some things. And my second emploi, or my other main doing, is with another friend of mine. We started a creative studio where we try to kind of connect our two different disciplines, which mine is visual storytelling and hers is design. And that studio is called Two Dogs, Two Cats.
I love it. That's also the card that you gave me. These
Yes.
cards are very useful because you really remember, you leave a mark at someone when you keep someone's card.
Yeah. Now, when I give them away, I actually say to people it's printed basically by hand. So there's someone who's actually working on this card, like old school,
So
made by
cool.
human.
Yeah. Okay, but can you tell us a bit more about your work? What do you do in the work in the world, and how is it related to wider societal or systemic change?
I'm not sure I started believing that this would happen eventually, but I guess this is the result of the work that I'm doing, and in some ways, actually, in both of these main happenings in my life professionally. First is basically a media that happened around 2018, which was a bit of a disaster time, I guess, for freedom of speech in Bulgaria. This is the time where we fell to the 111th spot in Reporters Without Borders. And there was also the change of the BNT, which is the Bulgarian National Television Director. And at the time, some oligarchs hadn't yet sold their media. So it was a bit of a time where freedom of speech was a topic. And I guess it still is in some ways, but it's been growing immensely, I think, the independent landscape of media. And so we started with a bunch of very clear goals and missions. And I'm very happy to have met the people that we started the project with, who are Jovko Lambrev, Anne Pham, who's basically also the main machine behind this project, and Vladislav Sevov. He's actually the only real experienced, I would say, journalist from us four. Maybe sometimes this is why I think it worked. Um, but what we stand for basically is that we need to have a place where dialogue is possible as long as it's factually correct and doesn't have the need or the intention to direct the conversation. As long as it's written in a professional way, everyone is supposed to be able to have an opinion. That doesn't mean that there are no, how should I put it, things that we stand behind, maybe as individual people or as a media in the whole, but your political views shouldn't matter so much in such a space. Media should be a place where dialogue is possible. And I think this was a very big concern of ours, I guess, that also we saw the result of people not being able to agree that some brand, let's say, in my case, I would kind of mix the two worlds between media and the creative studio. Some brand doesn't speak their name anymore. It doesn't speak their opinion. And I think that's a very interesting reaction of a society. We don't allow anymore for someone to have a different opinion of ours. I think this is very clear also in social media. And suddenly something like a media in this case, also needs to stand in the same way so people feel comfortable that even if there was one different article with a different opinion, then you kind of attack the media thinking that's not okay. But I think as long as people have as I said, a factual way to bring their point, it should be able to live somewhere. So I guess in some ways, dialogue is really one of the things that is concerning us, and we talk about it. And I think for me, it also became a very big line in my life, since I'm proud and out, and in some ways, dialogue with people is also very important for me to be able to live a life where I find my place without stepping on others, but also without them stepping on me.
Is this the same, like behind your documentalist work? Are you also looking for dialogue, or what is your angle? What do you usually find when you're making a documentalist movie? I'm curious. Do you see some patterns?
Um, um, I guess because I'm quite, I work a lot with, I don't know the word in English actually, intuition, I guess it's the same, yeah. And sometimes I'm not even sure what exactly I'm out there for. I think it's a very cliche thing to say, I like finding people, I like giving them the possibility for them to share a voice. Sometimes this means that I'm very respectful also in this process. So I don't find the thing that makes something extraordinary or loud and shocking, but instead I just try to have a respectful conversation and show that side of the personality that I'm filming. So yeah, in some ways I'm not sure I have like a real intention. I work a lot with intuition. I find the dialogue with people, and then I try to show their side of the story. But lately I've been a little bit afraid of these words because they seem very cliche. You know, everyone talks about storytelling and how the most important thing is to give people voice. But we live in a world where voices now are so amplified that it's more about how you sell them and less about what they say.
I guess here also your branding comes into comes into interplay somehow.
Yes, it does. I mean,
Visual storytelling.
sometimes they even kind of collide. But since, you know, in problems and in collision and in stress, there's always something nice to find. So I think we've also been able to learn a lot about where's the thin line between marketing, which I personally do not like and don't support so much. And I even have some form of stress about it. But at the same time, understanding how the world works a little bit and how sometimes even not the best product ends up being used or famous because of marketing. And I think it's not about if someone actually has something meaningful to say. Often it's about that they end up not being heard, either because people don't want to do it. I can't control that so much. Or because you just didn't speak to the right people or didn't find your audience, basically, who wants to hear you. Because there are people who need particular voices. And I think this is also why I kind of went so deep into this form of storytelling, because some voices just get less attention.
Yeah. And how did you end up choosing this path? What brought you? What was your journey to end up where you are at?
I don't, I would be so happy to say, I always knew and I followed, and that's not how it happened. But I did have an inclination towards telling things. Or even when I was a teenager, and I think it's quite common, maybe I wrote a lot in Bulgarian. But then I was kind of inspired to leave, to go abroad. And I think that this change, this learning a new language, was it was kind of easy for me and it was flowing, but at the same time, I didn't learn at the state that I wrote or that I spoke in my native language. So this broke my initial, I would like to speak to the people in the world by writing. And I think the next best thing I saw in visual storytelling, or either photography or video, was that you speak in a language which is universal. And I think I chose that way because after living for 9 years in Berlin, I remember at some point I thought, I am Bulgarian and I'm proud to be Bulgarian. And there are many reasons why that's true. But at the same time, I don't want to just confine myself to being Bulgarian and nothing else. And so I opened the path towards the world. And it seemed like the best way to reach that world or to speak to it was visual language. And that developed over like maybe almost 10 years. Initially, I chose design, but that was a mistake because I remember a professor once told me, looking at my portfolio, he was like, "You're just doing photography. I mean, you clearly have a thing for photography. You should just go for it." And then I ended up at a photojournalism and documentary photography course school in Hanover, and that kind of just shifted everything in my life.
Oh my God, so cool. Do you think that the role of this person noticing made a difference in your life? That it was, how did it?
Yeah, I mean, if I remember this to this day, maybe
Yeah.
he just pointed out something also in me, which was there already, but I was kind of searching for something else. I was following another voice, and I guess he just kind of put that so much on the point at
Yeah.
the time that it's still with me, that I don't even remember the person so much as the words.
Mm.
And maybe they were my door, they just I felt so comfortable opening that door and being like, okay, that's it then. Thank you.
Yeah. But I think this little story comes to show the power of being heard and seen. And when someone really sees you and is able to mirror back, because it's not like he told you something new, it was more like the person just mirrored what was already there. I think that's so powerful in this storytelling word
Hmm.
world,
Hmm.
the role of holding a mirror to someone and telling. What I really appreciated in the videos I saw that you made is that the story maybe seems mundane, like a everyday story, but it's in this mundaneness of it that it becomes very precious and unique and seen in a very humanistic way. I don't know how to explain. How does it hear? How does this land in you? Do you hear this
It
often about your work?
it resonates. I'm not sure if I hear it as much about my work, but I think I have that thought constantly because when I was studying, I remember the words, everything interesting is about the most, let's say, strong person in the world, the most poor country in the world. You need to always have superlatives. I don't know if that's the word, in order for people to care. And I did not feel I was superlative in anything. I didn't feel like I was the most whatever from the course or as a person in Germany. And I just did not resonate with this sentence. I was just kind of, I wouldn't say that I'm a mundane, boring, everyday person, but in some ways I am. And I think this need for things to be extraordinary makes us feel detached from our lives, because some of the things that happen in our lives which are important are in between, are in the mundane. And I think these stories that I tried to tell about a lot of the that you saw, and also now also telling other stories about, for example, growing old, I think moments that change you and impact you, not so much change you but impact you, happen actually while you're walking on the street, when you meet a person you don't know and he treats you badly. They're not moments that you immediately feel and kind of contemplate on. I think that happens slightly later, when you realize that they kind of stack, these moments, and then you're like, so I've been treated this way or badly, or I have been, as a woman, maybe often not seen as a powerful figure. But that doesn't happen because once someone told me something, but rather
Mm.
because in my everyday life, many times in the mundane, I was treated that way.
Mm.
So for me, the important moments seem to be in those kind of in between things, not the most important tops in your life.
I think that makes sense because it's like, I don't know, I have this feeling that this hero journey, the hero story these days is a bit dying. Like, I don't think I believe anymore in a single person coming to save you, or the supreme leader that's gonna fix everything. I believe more and more these days in systems, in systemic, or even institutional, or the effect of bureaucracy, or like something repeated over time, or for example the phenomena of corruption in Bulgaria, which I don't think there's a single person that's the most corrupted person. No, it's a whole system where this gets trickles down, and but it's the same with good things as well. Like when someone treats you well on the street, or just a smile on just this being recognized by someone in the street can, I think, shift your day. And over time, sometimes like to think about what is the mood that I live in, like what are the things that keep happening to me, and it's like, oh, but wait, it's not the external circumstances, it's me who is kind of orchestrating these things by living in a certain mood. And I think this type of mundane, like if you can show that, it's not even mundane, it's actually really special, but it's because we're not aware, because it falls behind our consciousness, I think. um,
I agree. And I think this is where I would even jump in and say, I think the conversation about the other happens a lot in this context that you just spoke of, because I think also the example with the corruption is a pretty good one. You always think that there's someone else who this and that and third and fourth, and takes money or breaks the law. And actually, it's often us. We do it on a very low level because we kind of know it works. And I think it starts with even, oh no, I don't want to get a ticket because I drove too fast. And if the police stops me, I'm like, ugh, I'm really hoping that it doesn't. But then the same thing happens to someone who drives much more expensive Mercedes and I don't know what, and is in a position of power. He does the same thing as we do. And as long as the rules don't apply to everyone, I think it's quite difficult to speak of corruption as something detached from the middle society. I mean, it's kind of controversial to speak about this, because it's very difficult to compare someone parking wrongly and then stealing millions and millions of euro. But it's a mindset in
I
some
agree.
ways. And also the everyday life is a mindset. I think I had a really nice conversation. I'm just going to add that quickly with my brother the other day. And he said something that kind of just blew my mind because it was very on point. We talked about how sometimes Bulgaria seems to be in a very bad mood, just constantly. Everyone everywhere is in a bad mood. They don't have the power to smile at you. And I think someone said But, can you imagine working such a unfulfilling job and trying to pay your bills and you're a student and you're overworked? And he was like, no, no, no. That's a mindset. That's a life choice. That's not just how you are at work. And then you leave the door out of your boring, mundane work and you're suddenly in a good mood and you're great and you're just giving people way and you're smiling at them. That's a life choice. I think that was very powerful because it kind of summarizes how people kind of approach life.
Yeah, and there are like other ways of. I've never been to Southeast Asia, but what I understand from people being there is people who live there have very low standard of living, very difficult living conditions, etc. And they are grateful and happy and open, and it's like, oh, so it is possible. Like it's not, it's absolutely possible to have
Yeah.
another way.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
saw that
and
with my own eyes. Yeah. That was very impressive.
where were you?
I was in Bangladesh, which is a actually very populated country. And it does have quite a low quality of life, as you say, but I don't think I've experienced such positivity in the communication in the streets. I felt so safe, even though it's such a different culture from mine. And I remember coming back and just being so hurt because the first immediate communication I had with people around here was very cold and disrespectful and mean.
Yeah. Yeah, so we shouldn't equate basically what I'm taking away is poverty or low income shouldn't equate bad mood. Like, we have a choice.
Yeah, we spoke a lot about that with I was there actually with my now wife. And we spoke a lot about, is it possible that Europe, because she's not from Bulgaria, Europe is just kind of going somehow behind the goal, which is very high. And on the way, we're losing the joy of living because it's about reaching the goal, which is obviously never going to happen because that's just not how things work, I think. But on the way, we're kind of just becoming annoyed that we're not reaching the goal instead of just enjoying what is life. Again, I mean, comparing Germany and Bulgaria, I mostly have a good time in Germany. People are quite positive in comparison to Bulgaria, and that really hurts me because when I go and reach when I compare a little bit, it's very, I don't know. I'm not sure what to do about it and how to avoid it. Makes me sad.
I think overall in Europe, we're entering to this trap thinking that happiness or some kind of fulfillment depends on externalities, on some kind of havings, usually, that you need to
Hmm.
have or to do to be happy, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Wow. In some of trainings and coachings I've done in the past, it's like, what if it's the other way around? What if first you are, so you be, and then from that being, you're doing and having, and then
Yeah,
you need a lot less because it's an illusion to think that the havings is going to fix your being, um,
I
which,
agree with that.
yeah.
And at the same time, I have this like dark voice in behind me because I always have this weird balancing conversation happening in my head when I'm like, yeah, but now we're going to be described as privileged, which we are, if you think about it. But it's real that people have some form of happiness and respect towards others that is not connected to that type of quality of life that we actually have. Because it really
Hmm.
depends also. When I was in Bangladesh, I kept thinking about Bulgaria and being like, oh my God, we have no idea how well we live. We just keep saying we live terribly because we compare ourselves with the best countries in the world. And we have a great life. And we have a lot of movement that has happened in the last years. No matter how much corruption and how much we can talk about how better it can be, but also let's talk about how nice it's become and how much more we can afford, how much better we live than some of our parents.
Mm,
They
yeah,
want that for us.
yeah. No, it's true. I think being grateful is a very important mindset to have. Speaking about the mood that you live in. And what do you hope for? uh, Okay, being grateful can be one of the things, but what type of transformation or how would an ideal society look like for you? Or what little steps do you see that we can take? A bit
Hmm.
talking about visioning.
Hmm. I have a bit of a mantra that happened in my life for some reason where I was a very kind of naive, positive person, and I used to say, we can live together in a great way, and we just need to find a way to do it. But now I don't necessarily believe this anymore. But what I hope for is to be able to live together with our differences. I don't need to like every person on earth with every of their hobbies and weird professions and whatnot, but I need to be able to live with them together. And I want that. I want to be able to be together with a difference of some sort. So, in some ways, dialogue just keeps coming back to us and to this conversation. I guess it's about finding ways to be together even despite our differences. So that's the vision I imagine.
Yeah, you know, that resonates a lot with me. I'm part of this art of hosting team. I've been telling you about this. And there we speak a lot about collective intelligence and actually not only tolerating differences, but valuing and seeking this opinion of dissent and the one who is in the corner not saying anything or not part of the conversation. How can we include that? Because then we have better outcomes, then we have more resilient decision making and all kinds of things that otherwise we'll miss because we have too much of the same thinking right now, especially when in places of power. Which, by the way, my my shirt for today. Yeah, but there is just so little women in high decision
Mhm.
making powers, and or so little young people, or so little people of marginalized background. Like, yeah, I
Yeah,
think we need a
I
bit
absolutely
more
agree.
and not to tick the box, right? As a meaningful um, place out of a lived experience that you cannot design for someone else. You design with someone else, and together you come up with something, yeah, better.
Absolutely. And this is also our mantra in the studio, by the way.
Huh? Really?
In the creative studio. Absolutely, yeah. You don't just do something for someone, you try to do it with them so that it works for them also.
Mm. Yeah, otherwise
I
they won't.
understand that this is again a very, positive, naive perception on things, but I don't think I would feel comfortable living in a way that I just say, no, that's not possible. I
Mm.
would kind of go back to the end, hoping
Mhm.
it is possible.
I mean, as you said, I think it's a life choice. I think it's how you choose to play the game. And if this is how I choose to see the world. It's like my vision and I have choice over how I choose to participate in the world. And I think eventually maybe that can ripple off. And what about on a personal level? What is your creative dream or something that you would love to work on, or what are you attracted to these days?
Um, I have I'm kind of a self-taught videographer, actually, because when I was studying in university, photography was the main medium. I met someone who mentored me into this new realm, and I'm very grateful for that because since 10 years, basically, I've been working with this medium. And I think I would just rather want to expand that more and do more stories, maybe from the mundane, as you say, as we spoke in the beginning. And actually, this year, I think I'm getting to like a milestone in my professional life because one of the films that I've done, we're going to watch in the cinema on the 5th of April. And it's not a, feature length documentary. I don't think I'm uh, dreaming of that just yet. But it's a very nice feeling to know that you've reached a point where you can kind of see it on a big screen. And who knows, I would like to kind of develop that a little bit further and
Can we
start a
put
family.
Oh, that's beautiful. I wish
Kind of
I
like
wish
this big thing on the end.
yeah. We can put the link to the movie screening in the show notes if
I would
that would
love to.
yeah.
I would love
And
to.
also to your studio. I was thinking also to the documentaries that we spoke about that we made a reference from last
Yeah,
summer. That
we
would be
just uploaded them also on our portfolio. Yeah.
perfect. Okay. Well, I'll be following your work for sure. I think if I need branding, I'll come to you. Yeah. Thank you for this conversation. It
Thank
was a
you for
pleasure.
inviting me.
Yeah, it was really good vibes. That's how I'm feeling. Very serene. Thank you.
That's nice. That's nice.
We'll keep in touch.
For sure. Bye.
Bye.